Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Honest Hour podcast. I'm your host, Peyman Shahmirzadi, co founder and CEO of Peachscore. Today, I have the pleasure to be joined by Taylor Meadows, founder and CEO of Code ROI. Taylor is building a platform that's automating tax incentives for software development. More importantly, he is someone I've gotten the privilege to working with through the Peachscore Accelerator. Since graduating from Peachscore, Taylor and his team have continued to build incredible momentum, including recently closing a $4 million investment round. Taylor, congratulations again, and welcome to the Honest Hour. Please, we'd love to hear from you.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me on. Appreciate this opportunity.
Absolutely. So let's get into this. The Honest Hour podcast, it's really about talking about the founder's journey as the founder is going through the journey, not after you made the millions, if not the billions of dollars. So we'd love to learn a little bit more about that. So let's start with you. Every founder has a unique story. Before Code ROI, what was your professional background and what ultimately led you to start the company?
Yeah, so my background is I'm a CPA and I used to work for the Big Four accounting firms. And my job role was a little unique where I really specialized in the world of software development. And I was part of a team that would be deployed when an incident like CrowdStrike happened. So I'd
Mm,
go out there and explain to them how to develop software in a compliant manner to meet their regulatory requirements. Then we'd help them improve their operational efficiency. And then finally, we would help them obtain these tax incentives related to that software development spend, which could be very significant, looking at anywhere between 25 to 50% of that software development spend getting back each year.
oh, amazing. So, a lot of times founders are able to recognize a problem either in their career journey or sometimes in their personal life. And they're able to look at that and says, wow, someone needs to fix this. There's a better way. What was it that you saw directly that you say, you know what, I can build a company technology to go help this?
Yeah, so that was where we were struggling to get the necessary data from our clients in order to substantiate the claims. So remember how I just mentioned is that
Mhm.
companies can get back, 25 to 50% of their software development spend each year. That's a lot of money. The problem is getting the data in order to actually achieve that and to get that money back is extremely grueling, it's extremely detailed, time consuming, and that's where our clients, and keep in mind I'm working with, almost all my clients are Fortune 100 clients, and
Mm,
even they could not be able to provide me the necessary data to substantiate these claims. So
got it.
then now I'm having to walk into the boardroom and explain to them, even though we both know they deserve this money, I can only get them, let's say, 5% of what they actually deserve because my hands are tied. If I don't have the data, I can't do anything about it. And that's where I was tasked to work with SHI, CDW, to see if they had some sort of software product that we could attempt to resell to our clients to help bridge the gap. It automates the data collection. We get the data, we can do our job because the big thing is it was hurting our billable hours. So that
Yeah.
was something where we were trying to create a win-win scenario.
Oh, interesting. So you're kind of in the mix of all this in your previous career. So this actually is a great segue because a lot of founders watching today, there's usually a defining moment where the idea becomes more than an idea. So I'm sure as you were going through this, you had this in the back of your mind, man, there's got to be a better way. Was there a moment that knew that building Code RI was the company that you had to build? Did it become evident to you, or was it kind of a process that you went through and then eventually led you to building the company?
Honestly, for me, being a CPA, I'm extremely risk adverse.
Yeah.
So I'm not a traditional entrepreneur. I, quite frankly, was just griping and complaining a lot.
Okay, okay.
And my now CTO one day just got tired of listening to me complaining and decided to do something about it. So she went ahead and she's like, "Oh, that's a repeatable process. That can totally be automated. I can build that for you."
Mm,
And that's what led to the development of CodeROI. And her background is she used to work at SiriusXM Pandora and led their $3.5 billion tech merger.
oh,
So she
amazing.
has, the technical background to take the idea and then turn it into an actual product.
Oh, fantastic. So, and I'm sure you know this very well, building a startup's never a straight line. It's all over the place. Every day is a new challenge. What were some of the biggest challenges for you during those early years? I know things are very different for you today than like when I first met you, but early on, what were those big challenges that you faced?
Honestly, the hardest part of a startup has nothing to do with your actual product itself.
Very good.
It's all the back office stuff that you have to do, whether it be incorporating, filing your taxes, managing your books, trying to raise. It's all these other items that take up so much of your time, and you're like, wait a second. I thought I'm trying to build a product and create it and build a company, but I'm doing all these extra things, and that really gave me a much greater appreciation for anyone who's an entrepreneur and the work they have to go through to achieve it. I mean, I don't care if you're in, doing plumbing or your pest control. I mean, it takes a lot of work to be an entrepreneur, and
Right.
I have a much, much greater respect.
Amazing. I love that. I want to help our founders really understand more about your company. So if they're hearing about you for the first time, hearing about Code ROI the first time, and you're able to, I mean, you have a very deep background in this space because of your CPA role in the past, but the many founders that finance is foreign language to them. How, tell us a little bit more exactly what Code ROI does. Who's your ideal customer? Because a lot of these founders could actually utilize the services that you provide, but they need to understand why they need you. So help them understand about Code ROI, who your customer is, and so they have a better understanding of why this is important to them and how you can help them.
Absolutely. So, essentially any client that is building software, we're industry agnostic. As long as you are developing software, you'll be eligible for these tax incentives. And we try to make this incredibly painless. It doesn't matter if you're a single engineer shop or you've got 1,000 engineers. What we do is we connect directly to the client's code repository, and that's where we're collecting metadata on millions of actions within the software development lifecycle in order to automatically assess what does qualify and what does not qualify for these incentives. We then take that data, bounce it up against your wage information, and then that's what we pass on to the IRS in order to get you these incentives. And the cool thing is because this is truly automated, now you're getting your numbers literally every single day. So what that means is you can actually use this in order to reduce your quarterly tax payments. So today it's common practice when you're getting these credits, you have to wait until the very end of the year, do an R&D tax credit study, then you wait another 6 to 12 months to get your money back from the IRS. Now you're just not sending the money to the IRS. So now you're keeping that money in your pockets and you're not giving the IRS a free loan.
Oh, that's amazing. How does do you get involved with the companies if they have CPAs or CFOs? Do you work with them directly to support them with that, or is it more like, just log in here and do this and you're on your own? What's that journey? What's the customer journey look like?
Yeah. So yeah, we partner with CPA firms. We do not replace your CPA firm. What we do is we provide them the necessary data in order to substantiate the claims. So we're automating your responsibility as the client. That way your CPA can do their job. So we're giving them the final numbers that go onto the tax return. That way you can get these benefits.
I see. Okay. And another thing that's, everywhere these days is AI. You can't look at anything or do anything without AI being right there in your face. And it's part of our everyday life. We all use it. And it's interesting what you're doing because you have an automation process, which traditionally everyone these days would think, okay, so you must be utilizing a lot of AI. Are you? And if you are, how are you using it? And if you're not, why not?
So we are utilizing AI from an engineering perspective in order to help develop the app, but our app itself it doesn't actually use AI. It's all algorithmic based, and the reason we're doing that is we need it to be deterministic. In other words, we need it to be able to be repeatable, come up with the exact same answer every single time, and we need to be able to show to the auditors exactly how we're performing this calculation step by step in order to create that audit defensibility, which is incredibly important. But the cool thing is to your point, AI is now everywhere. And one of the cool things that we're launching here in September is just like how we can help you get these tax incentives for your human software development. In September, we'll also be able to help you get these tax incentives for your AI software development. So if you're
Oh,
using AI agents to develop software, we'll be able to help you get these exact same incentives, which is a really great opportunity. And we'll be the first and only platform that will enable clients to get these incentives.
Amazing, amazing. So one of the things that I'm thinking about here, there are a lot of firms out there that claim they can help founders with the many similar things that you're talking about. Let us help you with your tax credits, R&D tax credit, things like that. How do you see your differentiation between them? I mean, part of it, I'm sure, is the automation, but if there's a founder out there or a startup company out there utilizing some of these service-oriented companies, why should they come to you? Where do you see the differentiation and the value that they can gain? Is it in terms of time, money? What is it that makes your offering that stand out for you to become a more attractive solution for them?
Yeah. So the really nice thing is that we're entirely success based. So we don't get paid until our clients do. So we're just charging 20% of the credits that we get our clients. That way, there is literally, you don't have to go find budget. We're literally going to go out and get you money. We're just asking for 20% of the money that we get you. And because this is truly automated and quite frankly, you set it up, takes all of 30 minutes for onboarding, and then you're done. It's running passively behind the scenes. You don't have to think about it. You just go back to running your business. And that way you're not having to go through any of these questionnaires, narratives, meeting with auditors, having all these back and forth meetings, collecting this documentation. They're asking for all this evidence. All that goes away. Now you can just continue doing, actually building your company and be able to get all these incentives in a passive manner.
Amazing, amazing. Focus on the thing that you're trying to do, not all the
Yes.
other stuff. Absolutely. Um, Let me shift gears a little bit. So, building a startup a lot of times is a lot about building yourself along with the company, right? What's something you learned about yourself since becoming an entrepreneur founder?
The number one thing I learned is that you can, quite frankly, just figure anything out.
Oh, okay.
During the process, there were so many different roadblocks that I was like, I don't know. I have never done this before. I don't know how to do this. And over the process, just, you do the research, you figure it out. And then the next time the next roadblock comes up, you're like, I don't know how to do this. And then you do the research and you figure it out. And then through the process, you start to realize it's like, wait a second, it doesn't matter what the next roadblock is. It's just that next hurdle to overcome, and you will overcome it. So don't get flustered, don't get frustrated. It's just part of the process. And I mean, you'll through this entire process, I mean, I'm still going through it today. You're always going to keep running into roadblocks, and that's fine.
Sure.
You'll overcome it.
Well, that's excellent. I think this kind of sort of answers my question, but I'll ask it anyway. Was there a point where you questioned whether you're building the right company and whether it's going to make it? I think some of these roadblocks you're mentioning always makes you wonder in the back of your mind. But was there ever a time that you sat there and said, okay, I'm at a fork in the road. Do I keep doing this? Or I go back to I'm sure you were doing amazing as a CPA working with those firms. Do I go back to that more of a, quote unquote, comfortable life? What was that journey like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like social media makes entrepreneurship um, look a lot more glamorous than it is. It's a really really rough road. You work insane hours. There is no work life balance, and quite frankly, it's like no matter how successful we become, that you always have those concerns in the back of your mind. And I've worked with multi-billion-dollar companies, and trust me, their CEOs worry about this stuff every single day. There's always something that can come up. But again, it's kind of goes back to the same point, is that everything is just a hurdle for you to overcome and to move past. So you really shouldn't be scared about challenges. See those challenges as opportunities.
Yeah. Absolutely, well said. The other thing alongside with challenges or mistakes, to me in entrepreneurship, failures are never, they're just learning opportunities. There's things you learn from and you move forward. If you were to go look back on your journey until today, Was there a failure or a mistake that taught you the biggest lesson? And if so, if you can share with us what that was to a certain extent, whatever you're comfortable with, where you said, man, I did this, it failed, but it allowed me to really be able to achieve X, Y, Z or learn this from it.
Yeah, I would say I know, like for example, in, building the app, and I'm sure this is a way for any entrepreneur.
Mhm.
You think you know what you want to build and how it needs to work and operate, and then you get into it and you start realizing, oh, this isn't right, and you did all this development work. Now you have to throw it out and restart, and that's just part of the process of being an entrepreneur, especially if you're doing something new and innovative. It's a very iterative process. So that's where I've kind of learned through this process is like you can't get negative about the fact that you just realize that you just wasted a week doing something that's now getting thrown in the trash. That's part of the process. You're constantly going to be improving your product. I don't care if you have a 10-year-old company. I promise you, you're going to keep iterating and making it better and better and better.
Well said. Well said. If you could go back to the early days of your company, what would be the one piece of advice you would give yourself that you think would have made you leap forward?
Honestly, probably a few different things.
Okay.
There's a lot of little tricks that I learned along the way, so it was extremely helpful. One was in the patent space. So we have 19 granted patent claims. And one of the things I didn't know is one, you can actually pay to accelerate your patents. That way you can hear back in closer around 12 months rather than waiting nearly 3 years to hear back. I wasn't aware of that back then.
Okay.
The other thing is there's something called a jumbo patent. And what a jumbo patent does is you're able to have up to 20 individual claims within a single patent. So what this means is you're essentially getting 20 patents for the price of one,
Yeah.
which is huge savings, especially for a startup and being scrappy. And that's one of the big things that you'll learn in entrepreneurship is you have to be able to figure out how to do a lot with very little money, very little resources, and figure out how to prioritize your time. There's going to be so many distractions
Mhm.
through the development of your company. You have to figure out, okay, what is actually moving the needle?
Amazing. Amazing. That's great advice. So let's switch gears a little bit. So, all founders, as you're building your company, well, not all, but most are fundraising is a massive part of the journey. It's about building the product, finding the customers, but also, being able to fund the initiatives until the revenue gets high enough that can sustain the company. So let's talk about your journey a little. You did amazing, closing your seed round, raising $4 million. Congrats again.
Thank you.
Absolutely incredible. Walk us through that journey. How long did it take? What were the investors that you approached? What did that look like? What were they looking for? What insights can you share regarding your fundraising journey?
Yeah. So, what kind of triggered us to begin raising in the first place is we actually got an acquisition offer from a very large consulting firm.
Mm,
And, at this point, we hadn't even started sales. We had some beta customers on the platform, but we hadn't actually even kicked off sales yet. But they really liked the platform. They saw the value it brings. They really liked our IP moat. But the problem is like we didn't want to, essentially sell out of the company at this
yeah.
point. I mean, we were just finally, getting to the finish line and starting to, move forward with sales. But again, it was one of those things where we had to make a tough decision. It's like, okay, do we accept this offer? Because it's, a very lucrative offer,
Sure.
um, or are we going to go at this and really go for the gold? But if we're
Yeah.
going to do that, we should raise. That way, we can hit the market and move fast and really accelerate. Um, and so that's what led us into raising. We actually managed to raise relatively quickly. I'd say in roughly about three
Good.
months.
Yeah.
We got some serious attraction from one of our investors. So we were at a pitch competition that was actually sponsored by Peachscore,
Mhm.
and we ended up winning that pitch competition. And one of the random individuals in the audience, she is a very, very large real estate agent. She's, I think, top 5 in revenue in the United States.
Amazing.
And she just happened to have sold a house to this wealthy individual that made a lot of his money in the tax space. And I think he was one of he created the first software to electronically file your taxes back in the
Mm.
1980s. And that's what kind of generated a lot of his wealth. So I was able to meet with him, show him what we're doing, and you could just see his eyes just like glow. He's like, "Oh my God, this reminds me so much of what I did way back in the day. You're just now doing what I did for individuals. Now you're doing it for companies."
Right. That's amazing alignment. I love that. Um, was there anything I'm sure that introduction was fantastic, but then there's a whole due diligence process. Like you said, it took about 3 months. Any key learnings that come out of that? Anything surprised you in terms of what an investor was looking for that you didn't expect? Anything that surprised you through that journey that you can share?
I think the big thing is like when we were first starting the conversations, it sounded like it was more going to be like the old school,
Yeah.
oh, it were just a handshake deal. But it got, quite frankly, very formal. I've been through a lot of M&A negotiations just in my career as a CPA, but they were, all for multi-billion-dollar acquisitions. Um, we're clearly not that. But I was surprised just the, kind of the level of detail. I mean, they really didn't leave any rock, unturned. And the number one advice I'd say is, be forthcoming to your investors. You do not want to be hiding something from them. Trust me, it will come out and it will look really bad for you. So they are going to ask a lot of questions. They're going to know everything about your company, the good and the bad. So you better just, you better tell them up front so they understand what's actually going on in the company, where you're at, and what does your roadmap look like.
Amazing. Well, that you answered my second question. What would be your advice to founders raising? And that's perfect. And I absolutely agree with that. So you're one of our graduates. I've had the pleasure of working with you for quite some time and known you coming up to a year, I believe, if not longer. So it's been
Yeah.
amazing getting to know you more and more and seeing your successes. Um, Love for you to share a little about your journey. In fact, when you first joined, what were you looking to gain out of a program like ours, our Global Accelerator, etc.? What was the thing that made you come in and apply and enroll into the program?
Yeah, I'd say the number one thing is I wanted to connect with a lot of other entrepreneurs.
Okay.
Um, Entrepreneurship is, quite frankly, a very lonely career.
Yeah.
It's unless you've are going through the process, is you just don't understand the work that it takes, the things that you have to give up. I mean, like I was mentioning earlier, I mean, there's no work life balance. You're
Sure.
always working. You always, hear people say like, oh, well, if you're working for yourself, you get to set your own hours. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
24/7,
What's
365.
that? Very, very
So
true.
just being able to just whether it just be venting to other founders and just be able to collaborate. Hey, this really worked well for me. Maybe it will work for you. Hey, let's partner on this. We can help each other out.
Mhm.
There's just a lot of different strategies that can be shared. And then beyond that, quite frankly, I spent a lot of time with yourself getting your feedback and getting you, quite frankly, as essentially an advisor to help with that fundraising perspective. Like I think we worked on our pitch deck for over a year, just
Almost.
slowly fine tuning it and improving it and improving it. I mean, I bet you we went over 100 different versions until we finally got to the version that actually executed.
So would you say that was the biggest impact in your journey? Was that part of working with us and Peachscore?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I thought the feedback that I got was instrumental in order to be able to explain to the investors what we do, because that's one of the things you have to keep in mind is your
Mhm.
investors don't really care about your product. I mean, they do, but they care about the outcome and how you're going to achieve it. So you need to be able to explain it in
Mhm.
very layman's terms so your investors can understand it in 5 seconds, 10 seconds max. Like it needs to be very short, to the point. What are you doing? And what problem are you solving? And that's one of the important things I always tell entrepreneurs is like
Yeah.
AI is a really fun tool, but
Mhm.
AI is a solution. What's the problem you're trying to solve? And you want to focus on identifying that problem first, then identifying a solution. not identifying a solution and then searching for a problem to solve.
This is great. I almost think I'm listening to myself talk. That's fantastic. I appreciate that. So, if there's founders out there right now considering joining Peachscore, what would you tell them?
I would say it's the best money you'll ever spend. I mean, I can't remember. I think joining Peachscore is like $300-400. It's very, very cheap. You essentially get a free advisor. Peyman has office hours almost every single day, Monday through Friday, both in the morning and afternoon. It's an hour long. And quite frankly, the number one thing is I notice a lot of the members, they're not taking advantage of these office hours. So there's many times I was able to join and I got the entire hour, just me and
That's
you,
true.
just talking back and forth, getting that advice, getting that feedback. And quite frankly, you want to learn from individuals that have been in this space, that have went through these trials. They're going to help save you a lot of time. They're going to help accelerate you and help you avoid a lot of mistakes. So that's why I always try to surround myself with people that are a whole lot smarter than me, because that's how you learn. That's how you improve. You need to just sometimes just be quiet and listen.
Mm, that's great advice. That's very good. Thank you. Um, so before we wrap up, one of the things I always want our founders to share, like yourself. There are many. There's over 4 million founders around the globe that are building companies at any time, many different stages. Some have ideas that they're trying to wonder, is this something I want to spend the next 5 years of my life on? Some are in the mix of building a product. Some are trying to find their customers and growing their revenue. Some have several $1 million of revenue and they're trying to figure out how to make that double that, triple that, and moving forward. So all different stages. Yourself, a year ago, I would have a very different conversation with you than I would today, given the stages that you're at. If you're talking to founders out there and you want to partake some wisdom and say regarding going through this journey and all the ups and downs, what is the one thing you want them to walk away from this conversation that they go, wow, Taylor went through this, I can learn from this, and I can apply it to what I'm doing on a daily basis? What would that be?
Be passionate about what you're doing.
Mm,
If you're trying to do a startup in a space that you quite frankly don't care about, trust me, it will come across. Your investors will see it, your customers will see it. And the fact that this is going to engulf your entire life. I mean, if you're conscious, you're going to be working on this topic. You go to sleep, you're probably dreaming about it. So you better make sure that you're doing something that you personally truly care and are actually passionate about, because if you don't, it will be the most miserable experience possible. So make sure it's something that you are truly passionate about.
amazing. I love that. Taylor, thank you so much. Amazing conversation. I've definitely had, really enjoyed building this relationship with you over the past year or so. And it's amazing how time flies. I'm watching you excel and grow this company. And one of the biggest things I like, so we're in the best Peachscore, and working with our founders. Our goal is to support founders around the globe. And that's exactly your mission. That's what you're doing. You're helping founders save money. You're helping them being able to get more for what they're doing. So that's amazing. And I think we're very much aligned in that.
Absolutely, and that's why I really enjoy working with Peachscore. One of the things I forgot to mention is all the perks within
Thanks. Yeah.
Peachscore. I mean, that's a really big way for startups to save a lot of money, get access to all these free tools. In fact, now Code ROI is now in the
Wow.
perks store, so you can sign up. It's only $100 for the entire year for anyone who's in the Peachscore Accelerator. So it's
Amazing.
just a way to give back and help startups get access to some non-dilutive funding.
Yeah, I love that. I appreciate you offering that to our founders. And also, Taylor will be back with us later in July for a special workshop session that he's hosting for our founders. So if you're part of Peachscore, definitely be sure to join that. And if you're not part of Peachscore, definitely enroll so you can see what Taylor does and he can support you guys. So Taylor, thank you so much again for your time. This has been a great conversation. I always love spending time with you. And again, to our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. This has been another episode of the Honest Hour podcast where we talk to founders that are actually going through the journey. And so you can learn from all the ups and downs and all the curves in the road in the founder journey. Again, I'm Peyman Shahmirzadi, and I really appreciate all you guys for being here. And Taylor, thank you again for your time. And for our listeners, be sure to subscribe to our channels. And if you're a founder trying to see how we can support you, come to our website, take a look, and apply. We'll love to have you part of the journey. Taylor, thank you again. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Payman.
Absolutely. My pleasure.